this is something which I love. Let's put this up there on the screen. Some major news after Elon has bought Twitter. Elon has ordered the team of engineers to revive the Vine code and reboot the app sometime this year. So people may not remember, Vine actually was shuttered in 2016 after it was acquired by Twitter in 2012. It's really interesting. What a lot of Twitter engineers are saying is that the old code base, quote, needs a lot of work because it hasn't been updated
been a few years,
in 6 years. And it's not really built for, but I mean, not only like modern platforms, but if you just think about how much social media has changed in the last 6 years with the emergence of TikTok. One of the reasons it's interesting is I'm doing a whole monologue on this, which is like, how exactly did they turn around, which is a failing business on almost every metric, from staffing, advertising. The way that they bet their future was just fundamentally wrong. And that's part of the reason why they ended up having to sell to Elon. And even at $44 billion, it was a dramatically overpriced company. You know, at its current valuation of what it should have been worth, it's something like 25 billion, which is like a average week or whatever at Facebook. So how exactly does that happen? So what they're pointing and looking to is a couple of things. Number one is it doesn't take a genius to figure out that TikTok is at a very precarious ground here in the US. They really only have a couple of options, which we've talked about previously. Number one, they could get outright banned, which I think is increasingly on the table, although I don't think the Biden administration wants to antagonize young voters. Two, this is the more interesting one to me, as a forced sale. Basically, we're like, look, it is not possible to have this company with this amount of access to America's data, having been used specifically for spyware purposes, to be in the hands of the Chinese government. So you've got to sell it. The issue is, and I didn't know this, you'll love this, part of the reason why the Trump administration's forced sale didn't work out is that U.S. investors in ByteDance would have had standing to sue in a forced sale if they did not make if they didn't decide that it was a fair profit that they were making. So they're effectively weaponizing American securities laws against their own government and for a national security concern.
Classic.
It's actually easier to ban it than it is to force them to sell.
Interesting.
Which is hilarious given the way that our legal
interesting.
jurisprudence system. I didn't even know this. A couple of my legal friends were telling me. The third option, which is the least desirable option in my opinion, is that they would reach some fake deal where they're like, well, all the data has to be held by Americans and a fake independent review board will look at it. It's all bullshit. Like,
right.
Look, if a Chinese company owns it, it's over. They have access to it, and the CCP can have control. Again, it does not take a genius to figure out that one of those three options is on the table. It is going to have some impact, some, we don't know, on TikTok. So what's the closest analogous technology? It was Vine. And a lot of people have been saying for a while, Vine was not first to market necessarily in the format, but it was a thriving platform that was really taking off and had somewhat of a cultural imprint at the moment.
Definitely.
From what I read, though, part of the issue, though, and let's put this up, next part up there on the screen, Elon actually had a Twitter poll where he's like, should I bring back Vine or not? 70% voted yes. Mr. Beast replied, said, if you did that and actually competed with TikTok, that'd be hilarious. And he said, what could we do to make it better than TikTok? So I think that Elon and the team over there are really thinking about what the future of that short form media content could be. I do think it is worth, though, revisiting before we all get our hopes up. Because I actually did think Vine was cool. Personally, I'm just not like a big consumer of that type of content, that type of content. But it's worth saying, like, okay, what went wrong here? Let's put this up there. Twitter shuttered the company in 2016 after buying it in 2012. The reason why is that they decided that short form content like that was not the future. And get this, that Periscope and live streaming would be their major bet in video. Now, I'm not saying Periscope is bad, but I think we all know how that worked out.
How consequential has that been?
Several years ago. There's a couple of options, though, which is like, what happened? In 2012, Vine was one of the #1 apps on the iTunes App Store after only 6 months. They had 200 million active users. However, this is part of the issue. A lot of Vine stars were not staying on the platform. What they point to is that Vine stars were getting big on Vine, but then they were going to Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube to make it big. And I kind of remember some of the Vine creators that I used to follow. And I was like, I wonder why that is. There's a couple of things going on, which is that first and foremost, it was just really early. Second, that was also the age when all these platforms, this is like awakening and censorship and all that, they were just throwing money at anybody who had a big presence. So Instagram was reaching out to people on Vine, be like, hey, why don't you just come and post it here? In a lot of ways, Instagram was just straight up copying a lot of content, right? They stole Snapchat stories. They were made it so the short-form video we're gonna get on there. Vine didn't have a particularly unique value add, but in a lot of ways, given the way that everything has kind of, Instagram creators, I'm not saying that they don't, they're usually, most people are like platform first these days. There's very few who are like genuinely omni. I think that Vine, their issue was that they just didn't have the recommendation algorithm. Like they had the content down, but they didn't have the algorithm of really knowing you. So they would have to nail that to become a true TikTok competitor. And I think that's the hardest part.
Well, and then, I mean, you're just straight up copying TikTok. I mean, that's the thing is like, we talk about all these social media platforms and, oh, our tech titans, these are these great innovators. I mean, every single one of them right now, all they're doing is trying to copy TikTok. That's the whole thing, like YouTube Shorts and Instagram and Facebook, all of them, and Twitter now is like, okay, let's do our own TikTok version. And I do think that it's the thing that made TikTok really work and really explode was that recommendation algorithm. I think with Vine too, my understanding at the time is like they had trouble monetizing it. That was part of the issue as well. And I don't know, for creators, it may not have been. It was apparently not as lucrative as other platforms as well.
TikTok's not either. That's the thing. They got the fake TikTok.
That is the weird thing.
You don't make a lot of money on TikTok.
And I do wonder if they would be vulnerable to the same thing ultimately, because I mean, we saw in our little dabbling on TikTok, it's actually not hard to get a lot of views because of the recommendation algorithm, but it's only the top stars who get sponsorship deals and those sorts of things. You have to almost go outside of the platform in order to monetize whatever content you're creating on the platform. So Vine would suffer from that same issue. So I don't know. I mean, again, the way I looked at it was just like, oh, how surprising. Twitter's now going to also copy TikTok, just like every other social media platform ultimately.
I'd be fine with it if, look, I would much rather have an American company doing it. That being said, I know that there are
the problem is, you know how this goes. Like, once a thing gets established and that's the place that you go for short.
I know.
Like my daughter, who was, like I said, my oldest, she was really into Vine when she was little. There were some creators on there that were super funny and silly, and she loved their content. She watched them all the time. Vine goes away. Well, she's a teenager now, and she's on TikTok, and she's happy with TikTok. She finds TikTok, she really enjoys it. She gets served content that she finds really hilarious. She's always sending me little videos or sending other people little videos. I don't see that she has a sense of like, oh, I should go over here now. So TikTok has already established such a large footprint. I think it would take something like completely banning it for people to be forced to move into another zone.
Banned it in India. It worked. They had competitors within 2 weeks, and they've got a thriving environment. Look, I agree with you. I mean, I've tried to use some of the TikTok alternatives. They're terrible. I remember there was one like Triller or something like that. Even Reels. I mean, again, the format's not for me. I know that some people use it, but I just don't think it's particularly all that great. As I get it from my friends who love TikTok, the algorithm is everything. Unless you can replicate that, I don't think it's possible.
Well, even if you do replicate that, again, you have to not just make something as good as TikTok. You have to give people an actual affirmative reason why they would decide to leave this little social media home where they're comfortable and happy and go somewhere else.
Yeah, true.
And it's not clear to me what that proposition would be. I mean, we see this with like all the free speech platforms that have popped through social or whatever. Like, people are on social media platforms because that's where everybody is. They get comfortable in a certain ecosystem, and they understand how it works, and they've got followers, they've got people who they are following, creators that they like, and whatever. It takes something really significant to get people to move over. So, like I said, I think it takes more than just like sort of copying what TikTok is doing. You got to come up with something that is truly new and different and provides something to your audience base or your user base that doesn't already exist. And I mean, maybe they'll come up with something, but that is certainly not laid out in these pieces here.
Definitely.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.